She hath done what she could. Those words spoken by Jesus of Mary with her alabaster box can also be applied to Mae Geyer Williams. Throughout her life, she ever focused on what she could do, and did that with an iron-willed determination, rather than on what she could not help, change, or control. A distant relative of Harriet Tubman of the Underground Railroad, Mae was born during the height of the Great Depression on June 13, 1935, to Ethel and Nelson Geyer as the seventh of 10 children. She was raised in one of the largest government housing projects in the United States at the time, Yellow Mill Village in Bridgeport, Connecticut, in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. She took the lessons of frugality, practicality, and self-discipline that she learned as a result and applied them throughout her life. She could make $1 stretch further than most can stretch $20 and was exceptional in her frugality. When informed of a, quote, big sale with 50% or more off, her almost guaranteed response would be, "And I can do better than that. I'll save 100% by not going." When Mae was 11 years old, her mother fell ill, so she was taken away and placed in foster care. Thankfully, during the few years Mae had with her mother, she listened and learned, soaking in the wisdom of her mother, often captured in wise sayings such as, "A stitch in time saves 9, and a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush." And she used them to help her raise the 3 children she would eventually have. At 14, when her 35-year-old mother died of a stroke, Mom focused on her education, insisting that Mama would want me to go to school, returning to class the day after the funeral despite being urged to take the week off to mourn. At 18, her iron determination led her to board a bus to attend Oakwood, now Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. After a year at Oakwood, she completed her training at Hinsdale Sanitarium and became a registered nurse. While she could not prevent her mother's untimely death, she could learn how to save others' lives, Mae reasoned. And it was with this same iron-willed determination to do what she could that led her to turn her back on traditional nursing and medicine in favor of proper diet and natural remedies beginning in 1971, convinced that drugs could not heal, but that God's methods could. She would develop a long-lasting reputation for being a naturopathic because of her innovative, successful solutions for often otherwise untreatable ailments. In 1959, Mae married Paul Williams, and 3 children followed: Paul, Jeff, and Rachel. In 1971, when Paul decided to remove the 2 sons from school and not enroll Rachel, Mae developed her own educational plan for her children, combining frequent library visits, old textbooks from the elementary school of the campus of Wildwood Lifestyle Center, Mennonite textbooks, and her own common sense to hammer out a strongly Bible-based curriculum. Mae did not know it then, but the success of her curriculum would be validated decades later by the spectacular scientific, technical, and academic accomplishments of her children. In 1976, her husband Paul decided it was time to make a full break from society and take up wilderness living in Tennessee on top of a remote range of hills. There on the hill, as they called it, having purchased 50 acres with an old abandoned house, it was Mae who figured out how to carve out a tolerable life without the basic modern conveniences of electricity, indoor heating, and plumbing. Drawing on memories of visiting her uncle's farm in Danbury, Connecticut, she guided her husbands and sons in building an outhouse, obtaining kerosene lamps, and securing a wood-burning cook stove, along with laying out a large family garden. While her husband led the charge in decreeing what should be done, but in reality spent his time consumed with writing and producing his publication, The Trumpet, it was Mae who rose daily at 4 a.m. to start the wood fires, heat water for sponge baths, cook breakfast, and prepare for the daily 6 a.m. morning worship service. She rang the morning breakfast bell, kept the schedules set by her husband, managed the food canning and storage, oversaw gardens and fields, and ran a homeschool program with at least partial consistency, despite a frequent surrender to an overriding Bible and survival curriculum. When life on the Hill ended, she turned to daycare, choosing not to return to traditional medicine and nursing. Then in 1994, Mae decided that she was going to devote herself full-time to helping to raise her granddaughters Sharon and Cheryl, who were then facing being raised in a single-parent home, and dedicated the next 10 years of her life to doing so. After briefly returning to caring for other children, Mae retired and enjoyed a few years of pursuing things she loved, including Bible studies, health classes, and time with special friends. What she longed for most, however, was to be with family, and in 2014, her wish was fulfilled when her son-in-law Carl brought her to live permanently with him and Rachel. Mae was well known for her ever-present bonnet, which she wore in public with few exceptions from 1975 until the end of her life. More importantly, though, from the time of her conversion at 14 years old, Mae was a devoted lover of Jesus and an ardent believer in the second coming of Christ and the seventh-day Sabbath. She loved to guard the edges of the Sabbath and was a strong supporter of Sabbath school. Mae fervently loved the 3ABN television network and enjoyed watching their programming frequently. In her final year, Mae suffered a minor stroke from which she mostly recovered, but seemed to develop a new sense of humor and enjoyment of life. She took great pains to make sure that her caretakers understood that her name was May, spelled with an E, not M-A-Y, the month, and that she was born in June. They were also always informed that her father never allowed drinking, smoking, cussing, or running around whenever they asked about her life. She had a place for everything and faithfully did all she could to maintain the best health habits right up until the final week of her life. Mae fell asleep peacefully and quietly with her daughter's arms around her on Friday, December 14, 2018. She is resting now, and she awaits the return of her Lord and Savior Jesus Christ at His second coming.